I guess we should move on now to the public hearing on 49 Aberdeen Road. Don, are you making the presentation, or do you have consultants here to present?
No, we do not have consultants, and I do not have a prepared presentation. I understood that the board had visited last week the property so that they're familiar with it. I could just briefly summarize it.
If you could, just for the record, explain, I think Joe Laydon just laid out some drawings here on the table, what it is that you're proposing to do. Not all of us were at the site walk, for example. And in any case, it would be helpful to have a recapitulation on camera. It gives you a chance to be a TV star like the rest of us.
How's this?
That's fine.
Okay. We built the house in 2006 and 2007. It was finished in July of 2007. It's approximately 5,000 square feet, and the property is roughly 50,000 square feet in general terms. It was built at the time to conform to the best of our knowledge to the standards that existed at that time. And we also decided during the construction that we would not complete one portion of the building, which was on the second floor. It was a 5th bedroom. And the reason for that was we were basically running out of ideas. Our children were very young. It was a little hard to figure out what we might want there. And money was always a factor. So we put the decisions off to build out the rest of this. The area that we're talking about is in the general neighborhood of 450 square feet that was not built at the time. Some of which has low ceilings on it. It's more of a storage area, actually, but it's a good play area for kids. And that whole second floor is set up to be kid-friendly, if you will, in terms of with this new addition of 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a living room area, so there's plenty of space. In any case, we had the design, the plans drawn up by the same architect that did the original house, and we've been proceeding with the building of it. There was an issue about the square footage, which is why we're here tonight. Half of it was approved because half of it fell within the space, the appropriate square foot allocation. So the work has been going on that half, and we would like to finish the project up with the rest of the wall boarding and that sort of thing. In terms of the planning board, there's a square footage area, but to have a review on that, or a decision on that, we needed to address the issues that had occurred in the design areas since the time when we built the house. And so one of them is the residential lighting requirement. And Joe was very helpful in coming out and visiting 2 or 3 times to help us out and try to decide what to do, because the lighting that existed up through relatively recently outside consisted of basically 3 things. The first one was interior, well, the interior lights that came through the windows. The second one was conforming, what I perceived to be conforming lanterns. There's a ramp access for the back door. There's there's a porch on the front with lights that are that conform, at least most of them conform with the dark skies initiative. And the third ones were the security lights, and the security lights there's 8 pairs of them, and they're a standard manufactured unit. It's about, I think they're 75 watts each lantern. It's a BR30, I believe, or similar to, maybe it's a BR20. in any case, those, from Joe's perspective, and as I say, he was very helpful, those were not acceptable to within the dark skies limitations requirements. So we, in the informal discussions we had with him, we talked about changing those over to dark sky compliant lantern lights. Because the house was recently built, that wiring was all done on a planned basis with the architects. There are right now eight light locations, each with 2 bulbs, each with 75 watts of conventional incandescent lighting. And so those, we see that they were up for discussion tonight. As far as the interior of the house, I don't think this planning board has any issues with what's going on as far as the interior design is concerned.
Okay, so if I could just recapitulate a little bit. You've expanded the livable area of the house to the extent that it's now crossed the RGFA threshold.
Yes.
And the issue that raises is that the current exterior lighting is not up to the planning board standards with respect to the amount of light and the type of fixtures.
That's correct, yes.
And so what the challenge here is to do is to replace what was resolved in the sidewalk. Are you going to replace the fixtures or?
Well, I mean, the ones that are there are not the world's handsomest, regardless of the illumination effects. We have no problem with converting those over to dark sky compliant lights. It does make a difference in terms of light spread, clearly. There's more illumination in the lawn and so on with the existing bulbs, but we don't see that as a big problem. There's also an issue that your eye is logarithmically adjusts to the light levels anyway. So at some level, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference how much ambient light you've got, as long as it's within the limits of what your eye can physically perceive.
But what was, I'm sorry, I wasn't at the site. What was decided at the site?
So basically those, that fixture that I showed you a picture of, that's being replaced by this type of down fixture.
Okay.
To bring it in compliance with the board standards.
All right. In terms of both the total number of lumens and the dark sky compliance?
So that's where it gets reduced, and the chart's right there, it gets reduced down to 19,000. 970 lumens, so it falls under the board's requirement for lighting.
What about the floodlights that are on the house?
Those are what are being replaced with these.
Oh,
that's what that fixture is for. So all those spotlights.
How about the lanterns?
The lanterns are something that the board has approved. 78 Miriam at some of the the Royal Wills houses. They're basically like a 10-watt candelabra bulb. It emits fairly minor light. It's really almost an ambient light, and it does have a solid top. Just the spotlights were the item that I identified would be the main concern of the board.
So what you guys, is that the conclusion you came to at the sidewalk?
I think we're talking about the lanterns.
Those spotlights being the ones that would.
You have to remember it's probably 10 degrees and you're dying to get it out as quickly as possible.
But you passed around and showed spotlights above the lantern.
Yeah,
So
so those spotlights are the ones that, because.
We're not going to have can lights over the lantern? Is that what's going to happen?
So, and just hold this up. So the existing lights on the back, there's 4 sets of these more decorative lights that have the little candelabras. Then in the corners, there's these larger spotlights that really radiate out from the corners. And there's about 8 of them that are here. This is down lower. They're up higher above the door. Those are what are being proposed to be replaced with these types of fixtures. The other types of fixtures end up being consistent with what the board has approved as solid top, and they really don't have all that many lumens associated with them. So the effort here was to concentrate on the biggest sort of bang for the buck by replacing those spotlights with here the dark sky sconces coming in at $650 each.
Is that what you're proposing, Doug?
Yes, yes, yes. The one thing that I wanted to mention is there's a pond up behind the house, and that our intent would be to put some downlights up in the tree down onto that pond.
Did you talk about that in the sidewalk?
I don't know if it got caught at the sidewalk. I couldn't make it. This is the backyard. It's a little water feature here.
Lights in the tree?
No.
You don't typically.
No, but I'm just thinking about this whole thing. Number one, eight spotlights around the house, which usually just has 4 corners, and 2 people illuminate the corners. Seems like a lot. And maybe a deal could be struck to allow a downlight only onto a pond for skating. I assume that's what you want.
No,
We're
it
not
looks like a koi pond.
Is it just a koi pond for decorative illumination?
Or
It's not even a pond, it's what they call a dry pond. Yeah, it's water flowing through it, but it's mostly stone.
So this is just a landscape feature, is what you're saying?
It's a
not for-
landscape item.
It's not a, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, exactly. As far as 8 being an appropriate number, if you start measuring the perimeter of the house, you're getting up about 800 feet. So I don't know what the number is, but it's significant. I happen to know because when you start buying concrete basements where this stuff sits on top of you, it gets expensive because of the perimeter size. But the thing that I mostly wanted to leave with you is that this is an interesting example of the architect having thought out the decorative exterior lighting to conform with to match sort of with what's in the house as well. At the same architects working on the security lights. They're completely separate. They're fully integrated, and there's like 2 switches that control all the security lights. Those, I have no problem. And my wife Elizabeth agrees with me. We have no problem with making them compliant with that dark skies and cutting the
Total
illumination
lumen down,
Yeah.
yeah. And as far as the landscape feature, illuminating the landscape feature, what we usually do is we let these very low voltage, very low to the ground lights, rather than this big giant illumination of the whole area, so that you still get the effect. When you're looking at it through a window or something like that, you can see it, but it isn't this big bright.
Yeah,
That's what we usually approve.
No, I hear what you're saying. Part of the problem is from the layman's point of view, this industry is completely and totally confused, the landscape lighting business. And you try to figure out what they're doing. What I think you're describing is some, what I call dark sky compliant, low lamps, walk illuminating.
But they also illuminate features as well. They don't have to just be illuminating the walk, but you're right, they're frequently used on that.
Yeah, but those things, you don't know what I haven't seen any. The ones I've seen are kind of not the sort of thing that I would normally put in that location. So maybe that's the right answer, is to put low lighting, when I say low, below 2 feet above the ground, and with a cap on it so you don't.
Well, and they also, they're directional. You can just kind of, I think that they actually are sort of ganged, that you can move them up and down, and they can illuminate, but that it isn't this big thing, where you get this big, well, your neighbors basically, or anybody from above would be able to see this big, spotlight coming down onto this area.
The lights would be installed in a way that you would not see the bulbs.
Yeah, I don't want to, it's more than that. If there's it's a scatter that goes everywhere when they're up high. It's a scatter. Yeah, you can see it, like if I'm walking down, I could see that, oh, there's a light up here, and this whole region is now illuminated, whereas when they're down close to the ground, they have a lot less impact.
I agree they have less impact. The extent of it, I would have a somewhat different opinion. I mean,
Well, the fixtures the fixtures he's proposing are full cutoff, so it's basically can lights, so you're not gonna see those. That solves the sort of flood.
Oh, for the floodlight thing, yeah, right.
The one that I'm scratching my head over is the three of the trees.
Yeah.
which is-
Don't, yeah.
Oh,
no.
you were talking about the three of the
That's
trees?
what
Yeah,
I'm
we're
talking
talking
about.
about the trees.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. yeah.
yeah, you're making the case that you would prefer that those be, I don't know exactly what the correct name is, but they're sort of walk illuminating.
Have you been over to Wolfers? You
Oh,
go to
yeah,
the showroom? I mean, they actually have a fairly good display over there.
Well, I'll take another look at it.
Yeah, and tell them what the problem is, and you might be able to come up with.
Well, the
something.
problem is that you don't have any choices right now because the industry is in turmoil.
No.
I'm talking about the night lighting. As far as I can tell, they're in turmoil.
I don't know. I don't know about
What's
that.
causing the problem?
Yeah, what's causing the problem?
The invention of the LED.
The switch over from incandescent, is that what it is, or?
Yeah, they need all new fixtures, and there's no money, as far as I can figure out, in the industry, so they're having a horrible time. At least that's my perception.
I mean, if the issue is the type of lights, we have some projects where the board approved, just the path lights that, are basically 18 to 24 inches above. It almost sounds like that's really the type of lighting that the board would prefer.
Yeah, but
And that would be
this is more than
substantially.
just a path light thing. It's like
This is
you-
lighting
I mean, I
right.
assume you want this lit so you can see it.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
There's a reason that you want this lit. The reason would be aesthetics, correct?
Yes.
That you like to see this, maybe you have a viewscape from your house in the evening,
Yeah.
and it's lit, and it's beautiful. So it's a nice feature, is that right? That's
Yes,
why you
yes,
want it illuminated.
yes.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying the path light might not be the absolute thing that you want, but there are lights that are more directional. So they're not just a little fixed mushroom just going down. They're more directional. So that if you wanted to illuminate the water coming down over the rocks, that's what you can illuminate.
Yeah. And are you thinking of any particular limitation on just elevation above the ground?
I don't know, are we? See, I'm not a landscape architect, I'm sorry, and I'm not a lighting designer either, but,
I mean,
Typically, the ones that are
Yeah.
directional, or, in the,
Table height.
yeah,
That's what I'm hearing you say.
yeah, and then you can focus them, they have adjustable heads, so you can focus them. They act like low spotlights.
and they can be hidden, so it isn't just like this little pole you wouldn't like seeing from your.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No,
Less
we'd
than
be
table
okay with
height.
that.
All right,
They're
so
lower than
We'd
table
be
height.
happy with
Excuse me?
They're typically lower than
Well,
table
it. Right, they're
height.
lower than the
It's-
table.
It's,
Yeah.
in that range,
Yeah.
Right, you have to look at what's out there. So maybe what we could do is sign off on the building attached lights and look for a resubmittal on the
Yeah, just the
and
landscape.
water feature lights, the three water feature lights, and write the decision contingent on submittal of
Right.
those lights, and then we can, I think at our next meeting, we could probably review the decision and sign off.
Right.
Okay. And what's involved, I'm not, if you could just tell me with the words, what's involved when we get to the point where we want to do work on the water features? The question is submitting the
Yeah, Don, if you come back with a not tree attached, but some sort of low adjustable fixture for the pond itself, we'll just plug that into the calculations for the lumens, and we can, if you give that to, well, it won't be Joe anymore, but whoever is taking
Joe's
over for
over,
Joe,
yeah.
we're working on who that is. And then our next meeting, which is March the 4th, if we have that in hand, we can plug that into our decision, take a vote, and be done with it.
that would be the end. So we could, we can certainly decide between now and then.
Yeah.
Especially if it's Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
That's fine.
And just be in touch with Ann Swain. She can, in the absence of anybody else, she can take whatever information you have and then pass it along to the person who's coming in to bridge the gap after Joe leaves.
Okay, fine.
And I just want to clarify, there are no changes to the house itself. You're not adding a dormer or anything like that.
No, there's no exterior changes. But this house was set up for this, we just didn't do it.
Yeah, right, just a phase it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, you all
So
set?
we're all set. So we'll contingent on getting the submittal to us, we'll incorporate that in our decision, vote on the decision at our next meeting, March the 4th, at what time?
Would the board be closing this out and then it doesn't
I
matter?
think we're closing it out.
Okay, then it doesn't matter what time.
All right. At some point in our meeting on March the 4th, we'll be reviewing the draft decision, voting on it, and then you're home free.
Okay, fine. Good.
Thank you.
I think we're all set.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Stewart?
Don?
Yes?
I was just-
Question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hang on, I'm just doing a little quick search here.
I shouldn't be taking signals. We'll work it out. I know, but we'll work it out. But we shouldn't be getting anything. Okay, we are ready for, let's close it after we get the submittal for those three fixtures, next meeting.